So that's a reaction following the nomination or appointment of Christian Toteyohuno as new Inspector General of Police. We have on the phone line now a security analyst, Professor Kwesi Aning, to share his thoughts with us on the removal first of Dr. George Dampare and the appointment of a new Inspector General of Police. Professor, you're welcome to our bulletin.
Thank you.
First of all, what is the update on your suit at the Supreme Court seeking an injunction on the president from removing heads of some security institutions, which is something that you sought an injunction on just 2 days ago or so?
No, the original injunction suit was in April last year.
Okay, so what we saw yesterday was an injunction pursuant to that.
An injunction pursuant to that. Unfortunately, I mean, quite a number of journalists are very lazy and decided not to follow or remember the story. So technically, the suit is still pending, and because of all the rumors over the weekend, we thought it was necessary to do an interlocutory injunction just to remind everybody that the original suit is still pending. So we are waiting for an interpretation from the Apex Court on the 7th of May.
There are some criticisms against yourself and Kofi Bento that what you did 2 days ago was to protect Dr. George Dampare, and that your apparent attempt at protection is what backfired, leading to him losing his position prematurely. What do you say to that?
Well, you know, ignorance has a way of manifesting itself as intelligence. This is a case that we've had pending before the court for more than a year. And you know, in my life, I don't suffer fools lightly. So I would rather not comment. If that is what people think, then I think the level of ignorance in this country by people who can read and write is shocking and is very dangerous to the democracy that we are all enjoying.
Principally, your suit is not necessarily against Dr. Dampare. It is against every person who occupies that position, and even in other security institutions. Now you have seen what the president did. What's your comment on his removal?
Well, the Supreme Court has not, passed any judgment or interpreted the Constitution as we sought. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, so I don't know what it means. But for anyone to think that the interlocutory injunction had anything to do in speeding up the changes that we have simply does not know our history. What our history tells us is that our security institutions have been so politicized by the political class that it raises fundamental questions about levels of professionalism, ethics, and loyalty to the state of Ghana, and by extension, the incumbent regime. If the argument is that anyone above a certain rank and position can and must be removed irrespective of the person's performance, delivery, and professionalism, because we are not sure whether they can be loyal to the new government because they were appointed by somebody else, then it raises fundamental questions about the loyalty of the people who we send to lay down their lives to defend this country and are willing to lay down their lives to defend this country. So in seeking the injunction plus the original argument, which had nothing to do with Dr. Dampare per se, but every other statutory security chief, I think with the exception of the CDS, the chief of the defense staff, we were seeking an interpretation as to whether the appropriate articles in the Constitution were being used appropriately to send home security chiefs without just cause, who were not up to the retirement age. You know, so this is a bigger constitutional discussion in furthering our security governance and management, you know, procedures. But let me make this point whilst you've given me the opportunity. Some politician claims that we were totally oblivious and we allowed the former president to destroy this country. And I'm just wondering, but what has this suit that we raised last year have to do with a government voted out of power destroying this country? And I want to caution politicians who come into power because they've got a huge vote from trying to close the space that allows all of us to discuss and to bring our different views onto the table.
Okay.
You know, different views, diversity of views, and in this case, our drive to get a constitutional interpretation about these positions is in furtherance of democracy. This was not done against this government.
Okay.
It was filed in April last year. So people would need to raise questions about why the delay and whether a case that is before the apex court can be pushed aside and decisions made. I am not an expert on those.
Right. Prof, something we saw, which we possibly may have not seen before, following his removal, Dr. George Dampari, we saw a lot of jubilation at the police headquarters and several social media videos going viral. What does that mean or say to internal cohesion within the Ghana Police Service?
Well, what it means is that this is an individual and an officer who has transformed the service and made sure that the corruption, the intrigues, the clanism, the networks that allowed people to take the law into their own hands simply did not work again. And when you stand up for discipline and for professionalism, you don't make friends. So we can see in one of the videos, the videographer recording the new IG and somebody spraying money on him, and the sheer crudity and disrespect towards the person of the new IGP is unacceptable. And the videographer then says, Ghana Police Moyede, to wit, it is the police service has now become sweet. Sweet in what sense?
So you think that Dr. Dampari should not grieve over the jubilations? He should celebrate and say that these are people celebrating because the disciplinarian or the cat is not around so the mice can play?
The mice are not only playing, they are playing the music and singing and dancing also. And that is what we saw. And whilst we may debate what he achieved or not, were you to send your guys into town tomorrow randomly and to ask ordinary Ghanaians, what do you think? I think the conclusion will be fairly positive. So it raises fundamental questions, and I'm happy the president, in speaking to the new IGP, enjoined him to fight corruption within the service. And I think the video buttresses the president's concern that removing disciplinarian IGP doesn't mean that we've gone back to business as usual. So some of the misconceptions around what Kofi Bentil and I have done, and as I've said, is absolutely nothing personal with one security head, the other. What we all want is a functional police service that delivers protection and security to the people of Ghana. So I've sent a congratulatory message to Mr. Yohuno, and when he's settled and let us to settled, we'll call him to congratulate him and to say, look, here we are. There's a job that we need to do, and we are here to support you to get the job done. So the funny statements from politicians about, we allowed somebody to destroy the country and ruin the country. It's unfortunate I cannot find it and read it to you and to your listeners. Does not help this country. President Mahama has asked his people to be humble because the stick that was used to beat Ban is the same stick that we use to beat Techi. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the people he has appointed are starting to forget that less than 3 months after coming into power.
Thank you so much for your time, Prof.
It's always a pleasure.
That's Professor Kwesi Aning. He's a security analyst speaking to us there on the replacement of Dr. George Kufu Dampare with his deputy, Christian Tete Yohuno. This is Channel One Newsroom on Channel One Television.